all of that mounting pressure was what would make me have a breakdown, but usually I did fairly well, so then yeah, there was nothing to cry about
I've
afterwards.
definitely cried because I got second place in something,
Oh
and
my
I really
God.
wanted first
No,
place.
okay.
I have definitely cried.
I'm not that. I'm not as bad. You know, I don't think
Hello and welcome to Tell Me Over Tea. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Sylvie.
And I'm Lois.
All right, today we are getting into high school, secondary school, and higher education. But first, what are we drinking today?
I'm having a cold brew green tea that I bought it from Japan on my recent trip there. And from what I remember, I brought it from the fish market area. And I made a cold brew. And it's delicious.
Nice.
Oh, what? So it's like a sencha.
Yeah,
with
it's
a
a
bit of matcha.
sencha with a bit of matcha, from what I understand.
Wait. I need some of that because that sounds like something I would love. I am actually having a new concoction and I want to know what the two of you would think about this. It's basically a cross between Dong Nai type, like cold Hong Kong style milk tea, but also like a Malaysian type of drink because I couldn't find condensed milk in my fridge. And so I used kaya, like the pandan. Yeah.
The
I
spread?
used kaya. Yeah, but I like melted it into my tea, and so it's a little bit sweet, a little bit coconutty, and I actually think it tastes quite good. I might be onto something. So, you know, before I get rich and patent this, you might want to hop on this train.
Wait, so sorry, you mix kaya in with just like black tea?
I had a Yorkshire tea bag, and then I brewed it, and then I put kaya in, and then I put a little bit of soya milk in, and it tastes good. I am onto something, girls.
Yeah, I might have to try that. I'm having Twinings Earl Grey loose leaf this time with a splash of milk and some sugar.
Oh wait, I love Earl Grey with a splash of milk. You know how to drink it, Earl Grey.
We talked a bit about primary school and elementary school, a little bit about middle school in the previous episode. So now we're going to talk about what we were like as teenagers and what that experience was like going into school. And I remember saying in the previous episode that I was a fairly good student in elementary school. And that kind of went downhill by the time that I got into middle school, high school. I wasn't a bad student per se, but I definitely wasn't top tier student like I was in elementary school. I think academics got harder for me anyways, I guess harder by American standards, and I could no longer be like that person who was constantly studying, constantly trying to be at the top of the class. There were just people who were smarter than me, but I was still pretty bookish, I would say. I was a good student. I was trying as hard as I feel like teenage me wanted to try, which was a lot of procrastination, a lot of like, I have to get this assignment done. I was the type of student who would turn in all of my assignments on time, but I would be up until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning trying to get that assignment finished because I had not started it, even though we were given 2 weeks to do it. So
she's a deadline fighter.
1,000%.
She's a deadline fighter.
Yeah. What about you guys? What was high school like for you guys?
Was I a deadline fighter? I probably was to some extent, but not willingly. I think because as I grew older, I got more and more serious with my dance. And so I had to spend a lot of extracurricular time outside of school. So like, for example, in secondary school and Hong Kong school, it finished at like 3-4-ish. And then I would have to spend a bit of time at my grandmother's house, like in between, to do my homework and try and get it done. And then I would have to go to dance at probably like 5 or 6 o'clock. And then I won't finish till about 8. Like, I just remember being constantly in this pattern where I was eating dinner quite late and my parents were having to pick me up quite late after dance to go home to have a really late dinner and then to maybe stay up and finish some work and then to go to school the next day. I think I don't know about you, Sylvie, but I was doing about 3 or 4 days worth of ballet in a 1 week, and so that basically took up all my time. And so I think inadvertently I became a bit of a deadline fighter because I had so much more commitment to something else outside of school than like a regular schoolgoer or like my classmates or other people had, because they probably had 1 or 2 days where they would do an extracurricular activity like sports or whatnot. But I spent a lot of time trying to balance actually my dancing and my academics. I don't want my academics to slip, but at the same time I was really trying hard to be like excelling in my dancing because I was, I wasn't really toying with the idea of going full time yet as a dance student, but I just didn't want to suck and I wanted to be good at everything. That was really me at school. Can you not relate, Sylvie?
I mean, okay, I can relate to some extent, but just going back to what kind of student I was, I feel like just even throughout my education journey, I feel like I've always been the person that tried their best, but I also recognize at subjects or things that I might not be as maybe like academically gifted in some sense. So like I also recognize that, not that I didn't try, but also like I kind of didn't beat myself up about it, like, you know what I mean? I say that, but also I still want to be better than just average.
Yeah, wait, have we all cried because of a test or an exam in this year?
Yeah, what cried because of the result, or
yes.
Yes.
No.
Oh, so Steph didn't cry. Why did you cry, Steph?
I don't think I ever failed the test in high school, so I never cried.
I never.
Oh, so crying was if you fail.
Yeah, I cried a lot because I felt like I couldn't meet deadlines, but that was very much my own fault.
So that was more like the pressure, not so much the result.
Yeah, but I did fairly well in school, so even like all of that mounting pressure was what would make me have a breakdown, but usually I did fairly well, so then there was nothing to cry about afterwards.
I've definitely cried because I got second place in something,
Oh my
and I really wanted
God.
first place.
Okay.
I have definitely cried because of that.
I'm not as bad, you know. I don't think I cried if I got second place. I think deep down I was like, ooh, second place is not so bad, but you know, still someone's better than me. But like, what's new?
You're
you know?
right. No, the thing is though, it happens a lot. As in, it never. I was not high achieving in the sense I was always ranked, but I think that one time, I think I came second in the year for like English or something overall, and I cried because I was like, shit, I got so close to being top in the grade, and I really was like, damn it, I could have just pushed a little bit more, and I would have been top in the grade, and that would have been something I was super proud of. So it wasn't that I was necessarily failing, although failing is really, in my opinion now, not the thing that you should ever focus on in school, but I guess school was made that way, you know.
I feel like I only ever cried if it was something that was a subject or a topic or whatever I was learning that I was very, very much invested in. I feel like dancing, you know, your RAD exams, I think there was one year where I was like 1 mark off of the perfect score. I mean, I got a distinction or whatever, but I was like, ooh, or like there was another person who got like the perfect score and I was a bit bitter about it, but I didn't cry about it necessarily. Deadlines, I felt, yeah, sometimes I would push it to last minute, kind of do everything right before the deadline. Definitely some subjects for sure, some not so much. I feel like I was very much into art and I did textiles and I just like latched on to this whole thing and I would just spend hours. I remember I would just in my sketchbook in the middle of the night, just like doing whatever it is other than all the other deadlines that I had to do. Going back to what you were saying, Lois, when you were like trying to juggle like dance and academics, I feel like the workload was okay for me in terms of maybe like my school and like academics. I was very invested in my dance after school extracurricular activities. When I went to secondary school, I knew immediately like I loved just being active, like PE, like, okay, I didn't love running, okay, but I liked doing all the other stuff. You know, like playing netball and like swimming and, you know, I remember at school, there was one point where I thought it was a great idea for like do a biathlon. I mean, I've never done a biathlon before. I just looked at it. I was like, ooh, okay, you got to run and swim and do all these things. I signed up and I literally was like, what is this? And actually, this is where I met one of our mutual friends between me and Steph, Zita. I was like, I was the girl that was on the school bus and I was like chatting with her. I was like, here, have a piece of chocolate before our training. Anyway, so I was like, I discovered that, you know, I liked, you know, being outside and like doing stuff and being active. And then obviously dance training and going to dance classes after, like, I was going to maybe, more than 3 classes a week. And on Saturday, my whole day would just be like dancing because I was in this program and then you were doing like, whatever, like 4 hours of dancing in different styles like every week. So in that sense. Like, yes, I had to meet deadlines, and I also had to have extra help with certain subjects, not because, not because of the workload, but just because, again, yes, in a way I didn't want to suck. I wanted to be good at things.
Admit it.
Yeah. No, it's also, I think I was more focused, and I didn't really care that much. Maybe that was a bad thing, but I was just so kind of driven with like dance, I was like obsessed with it, that, and then also like art or whatever the subjects I was like interested in, I wanted to excel in. The other ones, like, I'm okay if I did fine. Like, I don't have to be like the top of the class, because I feel like it would have accumulated to like quite a lot of pressure. But I feel like in general, I was like, okay. I didn't cry about deadlines. Did I? I don't know now. You know what? I actually don't know. Maybe I did. I can't remember. So, stemming off from what I just said, what were your favorite subjects in school or in high school?
I actually have no idea. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what was my favorite subject? I think there were certain subjects or certain classes, I should say, that I really liked learning about. Like, I remember I really liked geometry because my teacher was really funny and he made geometry very interesting to learn. And geometry is a lot about proving why things are true. And I remember struggling a lot in science and in math because it's a lot of equations that you have to memorize the equation and then be able to use it in certain applications. And it was really hard for me to remember all of these equations until I understood the logic of the equation. And he was really good at explaining that. So I did like that. I mean, I probably liked art the most, but I don't remember taking that many art classes in high school. All of the art, or the majority of the art that I did, was either in projects or as extracurricular. I took art class after school on like Wednesdays or something like that, and that was strictly drawing or painting. And then any project that had an element of art in it, I was all over that. And then also, I did dance in middle school. In elementary school and in middle school, I did do ballet. And I don't talk about this often because it was such a long time ago. But in middle school, I did ballet like 5 days a week.
You did not. Wow.
I did. It was like 4 days of ballet, 1 day of the Nutcracker rehearsals or whatever, and then I did tumbling. So I did.
Wait.
Yeah.
Tumbling. Who is this girl? Tell us more.
Hey, she's an acrobat. We didn't notice.
Not anymore.
I know.
I was an acrobat. Not anymore.
I
But
wish I
yeah,
had
and
tumbling
then I also
classes.
did swimming, and then I also did art. So these were like all of the extracurriculars that I did in middle school. Which now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, no wonder why I couldn't keep up academically that well in middle school. Like I had so much shit going on. I was like doing so much other stuff. But then I dropped most of that in high school because I remember begging my mom and being like, I hate ballet. Please let me quit. I don't want to do this anymore. It takes up so much of my life and it makes me miserable because my ballet teachers were very strict and it was very hierarchical, like the way that they made the class. And so if you weren't the number one favorite, it sucked. It sucked so bad, and I didn't like the art form. Like I really, really didn't like it. And the girls, some of them were mean. Some of them are hella mean. And so I was like, okay. And so she finally let me quit in high school, but then she was like, you have to do something. Like you can't just do nothing after school. So I took up tennis, which I also didn't like very much, but I did it so that I, could finally quit ballet.
It was a trade.
It
was a trade.
It was, but it was really worth it because tennis is only a single season, whereas ballet was like all the time. so I got a pretty good deal out of that. And
what happened to swimming?
Well, swimming was something that my mom had put me into because she doesn't know how to swim. And so it was more of acquiring a life skill than it was being on a swim team or something like that. So when I was younger, I did swim lessons just to make sure that I knew how to swim. And by the time that I was in high school, I like definitely knew how to swim. And also we did swim in PE class. And so I'm not going to drown if I get tossed into the water, you know. If it's pool water, I'll be okay. You know, if it's not super rough water, like I'll survive. And so she took me out of swimming after I knew how to swim. Yeah, it wasn't like I'm joining the swim team sort of thing. I also really didn't like swimming. But it's a life skill. You have to have it. Once you have it, you're good, you know. I won't force you to swim. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I did art classes as an extracurricular thing, just completely separate from high school. I took like a class and I really liked that. And then high school is when I got into theater. So after that, theater in my high school was 2 quarters. I think they're semesters. I can't really remember now that I've been out of high school for so long. Mm-hmm. But basically in the fall and then in the spring, because it's like a fall quarter, a winter quarter, and then a spring quarter, and then there's like a summer quarter or whatever. But in the fall we had a play, and then in the spring it was like the spring musical. And so once I got into theater, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is where I can channel all of my artistic expression into. And then I did that as an extracurricular, which I really enjoyed.
I'm actually really interested in the fact that, well, it's more of like a comparison. Mm-hmm. Like, because you just, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned that in your actual core subjects, like, is it in high school that you don't actually have art as a subject?
Yeah, there was art class. Like, you could have taken art class, but I didn't do that because I was already taking it after school. So for me, it didn't really make sense why I would do that. And I wanted to explore other things. So the way that my day was structured was that I took choir in the morning, which is an extracurricular that you can take.
You're a singer?
Yeah.
Wait, that makes so much sense. I always thought your voice was quite melodic. You're both
but
singers,
I'm not a
to be
good
fair.
singer. Because choir is different from, like, singing a solo or whatever, you know? Like, I was not good at musical instruments. I tried in 4th grade, which is, like, when you first get introduced to school band. I did try to play the violin for a little while, but I was very bad at it and I never practiced. And it was the same with piano. I learned piano all throughout high school, but I have nothing to show for it because I hated piano. Like, it was boring, and I never got good at it because I never practiced. And my piano teacher, God bless her, was from the church, and she was relatively cheap, and it was like an hour lesson or whatever, and she would fall asleep because it was like at night, and she did it sort of like as a volunteer thing.
Oh,
and so
bless.
I never developed any musical skill, but singing was nice because it was something that I didn't really have to practice because yeah, and I didn't practice very often, but because it was a class, I did it Monday through Friday. It was something that I didn't really have to practice on my own because there was a class for it, and so there was structure for it. So I did that, which was like one of my extracurriculars. And then I think I did another extracurricular because for the first 3 years of high school, I was an overachiever and I took the maximum amount of classes that I could. Either that or I would fill it with science or something like that. But there was always choir, which I took up until senior year. And then I was like, I don't want to wake up so early in the morning. I want to drop choir. And I didn't even drop it until the second half of my senior year. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, we really need to go and do karaoke so we can actually hear Steph's voice.
We've been to karaoke together. I don't have like a particularly amazing voice. I
we
am very
going
average.
to karaoke.
I can carry a tune, but I'm not like Zeta level good, you know?
Oh.
I'm just average. And also, like, I did do the school musical. I was in the chorus of the school musical because I couldn't really act and I wasn't that good at singing, but I had just, you know, quit dancing 5 days a week. So I was one of the best dancers because I went to such a small school that it was slim pickings. So it was like anybody who auditioned could get in,
right leg, left leg.
Yes.
5,
Anyone who
6,
doesn't have 2
7,
left
8.
feet.
Yeah, exactly. No, even people who had 2 left feet maybe probably got in. And just, what about you guys? Did you have favorite subjects either in school or out of school? I know that you guys are both really into dance, but I guess maybe otherwise.
I didn't, to be fair, like dance was not really in my school so much. It was a thing I did outside of school. We did have like a dance club that I was part of, but it was very like low commitment, and definitely I would say my school didn't focus on the performing arts nearly as much as like probably your school would have, or like Sylvie's school would have encouraged for sports. Like I do think my school was primarily like academics focused school with some of this other stuff on the periphery. But in my favorite subject throughout the entire, I would say my entire like secondary school, and even when I went to the UK to study in a boarding school, like in a dance school, we were doing academics. My favorite overall subject was English, particularly literature. That was my favorite subject all along. And I so agree with you, Steph, about how the teacher changes your experience so much. Like, I think that the things that I would say or recall about why I love a subject had so much to do with the teacher. I just think you just have better chemistry with some people, you gel with them, you like the way they teach you. I just recall that especially when I was in my dance boarding school in the UK, I had the best English literature teacher. Her name was Miss Mackay. Shout out to Miss Mackay. She literally made me love this subject so much more than I thought I ever could. Like, it was just so interesting the way she talked about literature, the way she like elaborated on things that we were reading. Like, we were reading books that weren't particularly like groundbreaking. It was just very classic text that you would all read because it was part of like our A levels. So I wouldn't say that we had very interesting material to work off of, but she made it so fun. Like, she made me want to go back and Google and like find out a whole bunch of stuff. She was so encouraging the way she taught, like the way she would pick out different, like almost everyone in the class would have a mention from her at some point when she like, you know, shows you maybe an example of how someone's done something, and it always comes from like a point of sharing, like, oh, this person did this, and like I think we can really look into trying to use this method to describe or analyze a piece of text. It was just really fun, and she made it really collaborative in class as well. And that was not something like the collaboration or like working as a group thing was not something that was so emphasized in my old school when I was in Hong Kong. Like, it was really academic. It was more like individual competition. You were mainly acquiring grades based off of your own individual learning. So that's why it was so silo the way you were doing academics. And then when I went to the UK, especially in this class in English, like I got a chance to work with people and do group assignments. I was like, it's so much more fun to learn. I mean, obviously there were people who would, what do you call it? In Chinese or in Cantonese, we call it the English, the free riders, like, you know, people who don't really work and ride off of other people's efforts within a group environment. But I was happy to let some people free ride because then I had control over like the direction of where the group was going or like our assignment. It was just really enjoyable. I liked art. I wouldn't say I loved it. I liked it. It was a good avenue to explore myself. Like to be creative. I think I struggle with being creative. I probably still do sometimes, even though I would classify myself as a creative now, working as a professional. I like to stay within the rules. And I think if you think about how I was brought up in terms of schooling, it totally makes sense. We were just meant to be streamlined into achieving grades, and it was all about the score, like numbers. It was so like quantitative, it was so not qualitative. And I guess my experience of learning how to do education in more qualitative manner came much more when I was in the UK. And boarding school was difficult in terms of keeping up with my grades though, because so Sylvie and I, as some of the listeners might know, we went to boarding school together. It was a dance school, and it was difficult to keep up with your academics because nobody else gave, well, not nobody, the majority did not give any fucks about school.
Okay, sorry to interject, but also I wasn't as lucky as you, Lois, to have this very wonderful English lit teacher. I had a very terrible biology teacher. I didn't even want to take biology back then. I wanted to take chemistry, but because the blocks didn't like align, I couldn't take chemistry. I had to take biology, and it was.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was
Anyway,
not a good teacher.
continue. Sorry.
No, you're right. So I liked science in terms of like my interests, but I knew quite early on that I don't think I would get the type of science teachers that I wanted. And so I kind of decided not to go further with science outside of IGCSE when I was choosing my A levels, despite the fact that I did quite well in science and I liked it because I was like, the teachers are not right for me and my learning and it's not going to really help me. And frankly, you know, there's different levels of what you can get from a teacher, and we're at a dance school, so inadvertently you're not getting the best quality teachers within the country. Let's say for academic subjects, that's not their focus. Like, it was great that they even offered the minimum of what A levels and IGCSEs would have, because a lot of dance schools, Sylvia, I don't know if you know, don't even have electives for A levels as many as we did. Like, a lot of dance schools.
Yeah, well, that's the primary reason why I think I went to that school, because it was like, you know,
you were still doing academics.
Get your A levels.
Exactly.
But then also in the end, it was so much to balance that it was, my grades were like, apart from art, which, you know, I was predicted predicted A star. It was still bitter till this day.
I bet you were.
Only got an A, but it was very hard. It was very
school.
hard to juggle academics and like dancing essentially like the whole day, and then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for everyone who probably don't know, like when you're in a dance school, like it could be different in other schools, but with Sylvie and I, we had a full day of dancing, so it would be from.
You only had your
9?
academics in the morning for like a few hours, and then
Yes.
lessons were in the morning, and then you dance
Before
the rest of the
12.
day. Yeah.
Exactly. So before 12 it would be academics, and then after 12 till about 6 would be just full on dancing. But then you have to do your prep, which is homework time, after 6. So then after dinner you'd be doing prep until about 8-ish. So then you're really only getting back into your dorm at about like 8-9-ish. So it was like a 12-hour day. And for someone who's, you know, 15, that's a lot. And it was difficult to keep up with academics. Like, I had the worst case of, like, what do you call it, acne. And it was partially puberty acne, but also stress acne, I kid you not. I was just so stressed because I was trying to keep up with my academics. A lot of my friends used to joke about how they never saw me because I was always doing homework or revising in my dorm. Like, we have common rooms in boarding areas, and that's where people chill out, and everyone would just sit there, watch TV, have a tea, eat biscuits, and watch whatever was on telly. It'd be like some trashy show, but that would be where you would bond, right? And like make friends. No, I was just in my room on my desk trying to revise for some exam that nobody else is taking because I'm the only person, you know, doing 3 A levels, or like I took 9 GCSEs. Did you take 9 GCSEs?
I think I took more than that.
Oh no, but you were still in Hong Kong when you took your GCSEs.
Yeah, no. So I only went to the dance school for, I didn't go as early as you. I went after I finished year 10 and 11.
Yeah.
So I only did 6th form.
Exactly. And how many days of school did you have of academics for you to take an IGCSE? Like your full school day in Hong Kong, how long was it?
Yeah, no, it's like a full day.
It was like 6-7 hours, right?
Yeah, it's like when you go to school at like 7 and then you finish school at 4. Yeah, no, it's mad.
Exactly.
how you did GCSE.
How did I do 9 GCSEs with 4 hours of academics?
I don't know.
a day?
That's insane. That's crazy. That's really.
I do not know how I did it.
Anyway,
That's why.
Yeah. So, if you want to be academic, maybe finish school and then go and dance.
Yeah, no, like, to be honest, yeah, I think maybe there's some wisdom to actually doing that. It was really difficult to juggle, and you can't help but feel like you're not making enough progress on either side.
But
none
that's
of
it.
this
I feel like, you know, you have to kind of make that sacrifice, and it's a very early. I also found that it was quite an early time in my life to make that decision, but because I was so young and I was obviously very oblivious and was just kind of in this more of this, like, you know, the idea of this profession, you know, without understanding really like the hurdles and things. It was just like in my mind, oh, this is how what I have to do to be a professional dancer. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas
Yes.
Yeah. Like you don't have that depth of like knowledge.
Hindsight, really.
Yeah, hindsight, exactly, yeah.
And the maturity. Although I did love having something to focus on. Like I'm probably by personality quite like I like goals, and they are great motivators for me. So then for me at such a young age to have something that I was like really aspiring for, be it my grades or like dance, kind of made it interesting for me. Like I enjoyed having the drive to do that. So I don't know, maybe I didn't really have a childhood. Sometimes I think about this. I'm like, did I fully have like a childhood experience the way most people had, or was I just too driven at such a young age that I like didn't but like, you know, I think I'm only learning to really
You only think about these
have
things
fun
now, I feel like.
at this
You reflect,
age. Yeah. I mean, the only merit is that my parents were not pushy about my dance nor my grades. My parents are definitely you just always do your best. As in, they would be angry if I didn't do my best or I didn't put in my best effort, but they were completely unbothered by results. And still, here I am, giving myself so much pressure. So it's kind of like they knew I didn't need the pressure, I guess. But like in terms of elementary school to secondary school, I feel like it's a massive jump. And like be it the academic side or like having more extracurricular activities or finding different things that you enjoyed outside of like the textbook. Do you feel like it was also really different for the two of you?
Well, kind of like referring back to kind of what I said earlier on, I feel like I had, you know, the idea of focusing on dance and like pursuing dance at such a young age was like very apparent for me. That like when I went from school from Hong Kong to my dance school in the UK, I still cared about, I mean, obviously I selected subjects I liked. Obviously I was very into like art and, you know, whatever for A-levels and, you know, the languages and stuff. But I was primarily like focused on, you know, my dance training. Like it was very different because obviously you had to adjust because again, it's a new environment. It's a boarding school. I've never been to a boarding school before. You know, I went to like co-ed school, you know, it's very different like lifestyle. And, you know, going from very academic kind of touching upon what you said, Lois, like going from very academic environment in Hong Kong to then going to performing arts school where like, you know, everybody was just like, you know, whatever, we're just gonna do this and we just want to be in musicals and like we're not going to do it's not cool.
It was not cool to study.
It was not cool to study, right? Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't doing like super academic subjects in the first place. As well, I did biology, but that was a major struggle. I
just remember you being in the art block all the time.
Yeah,
whenever I would come to see you. Yeah, I was definitely the little like Simoy, as in like your younger what do you call it? Like your younger schoolmate, in Cantonese, female schoolmate, that would go and find my CJ, which was my older female schoolmate, in school, and she would always be in the art block. Sylvie would always be in the art block. I would go there at lunchtime, recess, break time, and Sylvie's just in the art block.
I just lived there, and I basically just channeled like all my energy into that really, and also like dancing because I was like, you know, I have a limited amount of time in a day, and these are the things I only really care about, you know, at this time. And maybe it was I don't know if it was for good, for the bad, whatever, but it was a very I don't know, it was a very strange experience definitely for like the first year, you know. But I guess when you're kind of that age, you kind of just gel into your environment, and you kind of just have to, I don't know, get on with it a little bit. You know what? Like what were the differences? I think a lot of it was also understanding the culture and the people, and, you know, also teachers imposing certain, I don't know, you're in a performing arts school, so, you know, you want to pursue dance or thing that is very,
it's very subjective.
Yeah, and I just wasn't used to like,
I mean, for me, the experience was a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment, and I think that's the nature of the industry itself and how we train dancers and artists and performers. Like, it is about critiquing and improving, and it's so grueling. I don't like, for you, I don't know, but for me it was mentally and physically really grueling. I think it's almost no difference to like an athlete type of training. It's just that our focus is not on numbers or stats, it's on a qualitative element. But I feel so much that I was trained like as if I was going for professional sports.
I feel like yes, in a way. And also, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to like reflect back on my time there compared to.
It doesn't have to be, we don't have to be so strict about answering that question.
Okay, while you're thinking about it, I have a question. Did you guys have to apply to boarding school?
Yeah, we had to essentially audition to get into the school, send videos and whatever. Actually, but you
The
did
academics.
It did. You had to send your academics as well. Oh, I can't.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but so Sylvie, the reason why I went to that same dance school was because I met Sylvie through a program where we performed in Shanghai Expo, and she told me about the school that she was going to, and then so it piqued my interest. But back then, to be very honest with you, I was so focused on my academics in Hong Kong, like nothing in my mind made me feel like I would go for this as a career, and then that kind of planted a seed in my head, and then we realized that the principal was going to Hong Kong to audition some new students into the school. And then so I didn't go through the normal route because Sylvie went through like the open application route within school term, and I ended up joining mid-school term. And I don't know, maybe because they needed more convincing in when you're in the middle of a school year, I had to send in my academics first. And then I think actually my academics was what piqued their interest for me. As in me, sorry.
I really don't remember for me. I definitely sent in a dance audition video, but I sent a lot of audition videos to several different dance schools. I didn't just apply to this dance school.
But Lois got there
the same year.
Okay.
But like okay. I got there the start of the academic year. Did you arrive? I swear you arrived when I was in the following year, right? Did you come?
No, I arrived in the January of the same year.
Okay, right. All right. Yeah.
So then did you complete secondary school before going there? You have to.
No, you don't have to.
School.
No.
Okay.
Lois finished her secondary school there.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also part of your, because you did GCSEs there, so part of her middle school there as well.
Yeah, so I had the luxury of going from IGCSE, which everyone in the whole planet Earth thinks is harder than the GCSEs in the UK. And so I was doing IGCSE in Hong Kong and, struggling away, but still trying to get good grades. And then I got to GCSE mid-school year when I went to the UK, and I was like, this is literally a smooth sail.
A breeze.
It is a bit of a piss take.
Yeah, but in hindsight, it was probably better because you had to be dancing,
Literally the first 2 years. So I did my GCSE in the UK, and I kid you not, I did not study for those 2 years. I could have done GCSE with my eyes closed based off of how long I'd done IGCSE for.
Whereas I completed my IGCSEs and I basically did high school,
Yeah. I'm a little lost, I'm not gonna lie. Because you did middle school in boarding school?
Lois.
Yeah.
Yes, half of middle school.
So how long were you in boarding school for?
15 to the thing is though, our dance school is, you can consider it boarding the whole way through, but you live out. You rent a flat and you live out at the very end.
Yeah.
But until 17. So that's not middle school.
No, that must be high school.
That is high school. High school is 4 years for us.
Okay, fine.
Ah, so
and you
it's high
finished
school.
at 17. That's why I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean?
We have a little misunderstanding.
Okay, it's okay.
I'm confused as well.
We're there.
Don't
we
worry.
got it. I get it. Okay, that makes more sense.
Like, for me, maybe you felt for Lois, maybe you felt the kind of the stress of the academic because, in Hong Kong you were very academic. But then I think, for me, it was like, oh, I'm in the UK now. This is my sole focus. Like, I just want to dance. And, this is where I'm going to put all my energy in. And, okay, yes, I cared about certain subjects, like art. And I put also energy in that in. But then it was, I didn't stress so much on that, I guess. But I find what was most unusual and what I had to get most used, I guess back then it wasn't as apparent because, you know, you don't reflect upon these things until afterwards, and, you know, you grow up and you develop a little bit more sense in you. Just kind of how, going back onto, like, you know, the kind of teachers you had, you know, like you essentially like a subject or like a certain field, or well, maybe not totally, but who teaches you or who, you know, introduce you or inspires you for that subject really dictates like if you love it or not, and if you're going to go down that route, right? And there are, like, in this performing arts school, there were just so many characters and so many teachers that I loved dancing. I was like, I wanted to be a ballerina. I wanted to dance. But then it wasn't just purely a ballet school. It was, you did other dance styles, and you train in jazz and the, like, contemporary, and the people who taught you really affect you. And I was more concerned about some of the language and some of just like the comments that certain teachers, you know, as in performing arts school, you're going to get that kind of stereotypical, like, oh, you know, comments about how you look like, what you have to do, and this and that. Like, I found that more discerning than the physical side of it. Yes, it was tiring, but I'm like, I want to do this. So, like, you know, I wasn't like training as an athlete, like, didn't really bother me so much. But it was more about also getting to use the culture and like, you know, all the other girls, and I mean the few guys that were there.
Like it was like a 70-30 split.
It was
for
it was
boys and girls in the school.
Yeah, it was a very strange experience for me, to be honest. I don't know. I can't really put it into words. It was quite a long time ago. But I was kind of more focused on, like, and it was very much fed into us that it's like, oh, you just got to get out there. You just got to get yourself out there. And, you know,
100%, yeah.
I didn't kind of like maybe explore different avenues after this place. It was just like, just get out there, you know. It really is like the environment kind of like molds you, and there were teachers and things that I did not connect to, and some people loved them, and I'm just like, I don't understand, like, why, you know. I'm not gonna disclose any names and things, but yeah, it was and obviously there were some teachers that I really liked, and I was like very genuine and, like, you know, fostered like how my dance journey had gone and how I, you know, went into contemporary dance eventually, you know. But yeah, it was something else. I can't find a better word too.
It's rough because I think the juxtaposition of what being in a person training for a full-time dance career and the actual maturity and age that we were at is so not compatible. Like, a nicer way to put it is that you're forced to grow up faster, but I also think that there's been so much research and so much, like, expose these days as to how mentally inadequate it is for someone to be put in this position at this age, right? And like, I'm like, damn, I wish there was more of this mental health conversation when we were in our training days. Because I can imagine the Gen Zs now and how potentially their experience of training could be better. Like, I hope to whatever's out there in the world that this is better now, because it's difficult. I think we lose a lot of talent in this time of which they need to go through this process to be able to stay and work in the industry. And it's just such a shame. You lose a lot of people who are great and extremely talented based off of this very regimental way you train somebody.
Yeah, definitely. And anyway, it is done. And it is.
And to be fair, it got us to where we are, despite how minorly fucked it might have been.
I honestly don't, to be fair, I don't really think about it anymore, because what's done's done, you know. And
fair.
We're still here, you know. Just keep going forward. Anyway,
yeah, I think it's really interesting when you guys talk about your experience at boarding school, because boarding school was never on my radar at that age. It's interesting to see the parallels between like me really wanting to go to university because it was just the next step that I was supposed to do. No one ever told me, hey, you don't have to go to university if you don't want to. It was just like, no, you have to do this. And if you go to university, you have to pick what you want to study, you know, like the thing that you are going to essentially dedicate your life to. And people don't really say that, like, oh, you know, if you put money into this and then you change your mind, that's okay. Most people are like, you pick this and then you do it forever and that's it. And to put pressure on a 16, 17-year-old to choose what they're going to do for the rest of their lives, and then to lock them into that financially is insane. But, you know, it happens all the time. And the American education system really, really focuses very heavily on getting into college or getting into a university. And it's worked out so far. But I don't think at this point in my life I would have chosen the major that I would have chosen. And that's the first thing that I think is a parallel, you know, just being so young and having to choose something. And the second thing is going back to talking about like the differences between schools. Going from middle school to high school was like a little bit of an adjustment, but going from high school to college was an insane adjustment for me. And it's, I want to say, similar to the things that you guys experienced because there was so much more freedom, but also the entire structure of school was very different in a way that I had never experienced, because prior to going to university, all of my classes were like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's your whole day scheduled out for you. And then you have time to do stuff, you know, for yourself or to boost your resume in order to go to college. But college was very nebulous for me, where you could choose your own schedule. You could choose it based off of if you worked or if you did other things outside of college, or, you know, if you had clubs or whatever. There's like all of these things, and you could take night classes or whatever. And I think I was so confused about that I would pack my schedule to the brim, and I would take, like, there was a point where I was taking, I think you're supposed to take 15 credits, and that's like the required amount of credits to be considered a full-time student. I remember taking like 36 credits because I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. I mean, granted, I really liked the thing that I was studying. You know, I had majored in theater. I absolutely loved it, and I wanted to learn all of these things. So I would pack my schedule to the brim, but I didn't have a social life. I can honestly say that I have made a single friend in all of college, you know, and that's with me being involved in a lot of the theater department. I was doing all of these shows, but I wasn't really socializing. I was just doing my own thing and trying to like learn about theater. And so like in that way, I was doing a very intensive amount of work in the same ways that I feel like you guys were doing when you were dancing. And I just did that for 3 years.
Wait, did you live?
I did graduate
on campus.
Yes, I lived on campus. So,
but that didn't even give you like a way to socialize or like meet people, or you were just so busy?
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't that interested in socializing.
That's fair.
I was really shy. I was really, really, really shy as a budding high schooler or whatever. And I had a group of friends in high school, and they all went to a different college than I did. So I was kind of alone. I knew some people, but like not really. And yeah, it was, I made friends with my roommate the first year that I you know, was at college. I met my college roommate. Shout out Sarita, she's great. And then I lived with her for the next 4 years in college, but didn't have friends aside from that. I knew people, I socialized with people, but I didn't end up with a single friend. Or, you know.
I guess uni or college can give you that experience, because my sister always shares that it's really difficult to actually make friends in uni and college, and I didn't experience uni.
I disagree. I think
it's harder than school.
I fully disagree. I think I could have made a lot of friends.
Do you?
But I was very socially inept at the time.
Okay.
Like, I was so socially awkward, and I didn't know how to like relate to people. And I remember people trying really hard to relate to me, but I was like a sheltered, sad little girl. Like, I don't know. I knew nothing about the world. I was so naive, and it was what it was.
Fair enough.
Before we round
out,
yeah.
But I have a question. If you were to redo it again, what subject what would you have done instead in college if it wasn't theatre? Like, if you had to, theoretically saying you can like redo it again? Or
Yeah, there was a time, I think maybe in like my first year and my second year, where I wanted to do a double major because I was taking so many classes anyways that I was like, oh, it wouldn't be hard to like do this and then still complete it within 4 years. I wanted to major in business because I thought that was it's a more practical major, you know, and it's something that you can like use in the future if theater doesn't pan out. But instead of doing that, I graduated early with a theater degree, and then I got a minor in dance. So
I always forget that you had a minor in dance. It's wild.
yeah, I really don't talk a lot about the fact that I did a lot of dance.
wait, do I actually know this?
I think I mentioned it once or twice, but I feel like in the context of the two of you, I am not a dancer, so I rarely bring it up because
Got you.
and this is like maybe the first time that I'm addressing this. When I met you, Sylvie, I still in my head thought that I was a dancer. And then I realized that no, I'm not. You're a dancer, like capital D dancer. And I danced as a hobby and like in my childhood. And those two are not the same thing.
But what made you have that realization when we went out dancing?
No. That's different. That kind of dancing is a different kind of dancing.
Okay.
No, it was just that I don't use that skill anymore, especially now. You know, now that I've known you for this long, it's not like I dance that much anyways. Coming out of it, because after I did university, I moved to Hong Kong to get my master's. And so at that time, it had only been like a year or two that I had stopped dancing entirely. And so in my brain, I'm still like, oh yeah, I'm still holding on to this identity. But then realizing that professional dancing is a thing, I was like, I think I have to let this go because it defines so much of my childhood. And I kind of got into it like minoring in dance, but it's not really the same thing. It's not like I was doing it all of the time. And I was finally like, I don't think this identity serves me anymore. And I need to be okay with letting it go so that I can, you know, have something else come into my life. But then also I feel weird talking about it because
why?
Because like grappling with that took a while, you know.
Right.
Like I can talk about it now, now that I'm like, yeah, I'm not a dancer, but it took a while to like, you know, get through that awkwardness of am I a dancer, am I not a dancer, and I didn't want to jostle that in my brain when I had first met you. Now it's chill.
I mean, that can be a whole different episode because I feel like both Lois and I mean. Yeah.
I am in the middle of going through that in a different way. Yeah. Like as someone who has had a career, I would really like to be able to get to a stage where I can be like you and not feel so attached to this identity, especially because I don't really dance professionally anymore. And but it was so much part of my 20, like in my first 20 years of my life, and then I made a career out of it, so it's difficult to let it go. Like I can only imagine what you went through. We're almost at the end of the episode, but I just want to do a quick go around because I want to know our favorite school experience, like from higher education, or like the thing that's the most memorable. I can go first. Guy Fawkes Night in the UK. I don't know if that exists. Steph.
What? You mean like the movie? Like V for Vendetta? Where you like wear a mask and you like go outside and you like burn things?
So
Parliament?
Yes,
Parliament is the same.
We had that in school. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the history behind it. I would have to Google it, and I'm not going to do it. But we just had, once a year, this one day, Guy Fawkes Night, and everyone would stand outside the big yard at the school, and there would be shit that's being burnt. And we would all just, like, gather around the fire, and then we would, like, have... Do you not remember this, Sylvie?
Yeah, I do, but it's just a big bonfire, and I just thought it was absolute shit. And you just ate, like, what did we have? We had shit school dinners, and it was just like, oh, cool. Like... You liked it?
But I just thought it was really new. Like, I had never experienced anything like this. And I just watched everything go up in flames. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And it was usually the only time where I really get to, like, in like, darkness and with a bit of, like, firelighting, get to socialize with other people outside of my immediate friendship group. Because I think when you're in school, you're just, like, dancing and going through academics. You're kind of with the same people constantly. But then, like, in this Guy Fawkes Night, you kind of meet all the other people in the school. And, like, you can bond and talk. So I just thought it was... And also very mystical. I just found it interesting.
Really? I just thought it was
is
just
what
a bunch
people
of
in the
shit
UK
burning
do.
in the, in the back.
Well, then what was yours? What was yours, Sylvia, then? From any point of your school?
I don't really know. I'm trying to think of like what are the really. Okay, I guess if we're talking about memorable, may not necessarily be the happiest memory.
Fair.
It was actually my first day. It was my first day. It is like a scene from the film, like a movie, like typical high school. You know, you're new, you don't know anybody. It's breakfast, you have your tray, you're literally just in the canteen, dining hall, like trying to find a seat, and you know nobody there. And you finally sit down, you find a spare little seat, you sit down. The second you sit down, there's these three girls who just like do little side eye to each other, immediately stand up and move, and I'm just there like, oh my god, this is not it. This is the start of like my my hopes and dreams. I've come here and it's going to be an amazing magical journey, and this is the first day, and I'm like, right, you got a long way to go. You got a long way to go. But that is a point, like a very pinnacle point of a memory that I have. There's also some other ones, but I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
Fair enough.
If I have
That's hard to forget.
If I have a I don't know if it was malicious, or if it was like intended, but it was just like, right, you gotta. This is what this industry is like. Yes, just you're in it now. You gotta, but also you learn to fend for yourself in school, etc.
So I first started drinking in university. So some of my favorite memories are like recounting the night before, like everybody goes into the dining hall, which is where we would eat, and just being like, what happened last night? Like, where did you go? Or like, what are you doing? Because I think my high school experience was very tame. Even though I know that there were parties going on, whatever, I didn't really experience a lot of that, a lot of like typical what you see in movies. But when I got to university, it was like a free-for-all. There were frat parties that I went to, and getting to experience that version of high school or like college life, like a very stereotypical college life in a way that I thought I never would, was really fun, and also some, at times not the most fun, but it was definitely a learning experience, and I made a lot of weird memories, like weird, interesting memories. So maybe that.
Okay. So I guess we really took a trip down memory lane today for all of us, but also I learned so much about the two of you today. It's kind of ridiculous. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed listening to this, do go and give us a like or a rating on Spotify or wherever you listen to us right now. We really appreciate it. It really helps us, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.